Hello, for those of you who don't know me, I'm John. I'm John Self. Been at St Thomas's now for a couple of years and just beginning to help out a little bit here and there. This afternoon I'm going to be using the reading that's set for today, the Gospel reading that's set for today as our theme. It's the third Sunday of Easter and the theme is the Emmaus Road. And the reading is taken from Luke chapter 24, starting at the 13th verse. Now that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking to each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood up, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who doesn't know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and the rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. And we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it's the third day since all of this has taken place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but they didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was still alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the woman had said, but they didn't see Jesus." Some said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets had spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going further. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it's nearly evening, and day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, "It's true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." And then the two told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. When dreams die, people often become discouraged and they lose heart. The two people walking on the Emmaus Road in our reading had a dream that had died. In fact, they had much more than a dream, didn't they? They had met with someone who had really given them a hope, a purpose to their whole lives. And all at once, that was all ended. Everything was shattered. They'd been followers of Jesus, and they believed that he was the Messiah. However, he'd been put to death, and their dreams and their hopes were all ended. And we don't really know why they were travelling on the road towards Emmaus. All we know was that they were walking away from Jerusalem, away from the place where those dreams and those hopes had been shattered. As they trudged along that road, a stranger began to walk alongside them. When he asked why they were so upset, they told him everything, their hopes, their dreams, their sorrows, their bewilderment, everything that they had experienced. And the stranger, using scripture, encouraged them to look at their situation from a very different perspective. Maybe everything that happened wasn't to be the end of their dreams and their hopes. Maybe Jesus' death had been part of God's plan all along. Maybe God hadn't finished with Jesus' followers. Maybe what they had experienced was actually part of all that God was doing through Jesus. When they reached a place to stop for the night, they invited the stranger to stay and to eat with them. Then, as they shared together in that meal, the stranger broke bread with them, and they saw him in a new light. They recognized the stranger for who he was, Jesus himself. Jesus then, we're told, just disappeared. We don't know what happened, but he went out of sight. And the two hurriedly returned to Jerusalem. We can imagine, can't we, how their mood must have changed. They would have left Jerusalem with heavy hearts, and now they were returning to that same city with a spring of excitement in their steps. They even risked travelling at night. They were so excited. It was dark and possibly even dangerous. But they travelled anyway in order to get back as quickly as possible to Jerusalem to share their message of hope with the other followers of Jesus. You know, sometimes when a dream dies, it does so only to allow a greater dream to be born in its place. A plant withers and dies and drops its seeds into the ground, but very often not only one, but many more new plants grow in its place. Earlier in chapter 4, Luke tells us that Jesus explained his mission as bringing good news to the poor. Many of you will remember the passage. The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour. We're called to fulfil this mission of Jesus by bringing the good news to the poor. In Luke 4, Jesus tells us what his mission is. He also gives us a vision of what is possible for us. And in breaking bread in Luke 24, he gives us encouragement, reassurance of his presence and the power of his resurrection. Even here in the UK, inequality is an issue, and the present crisis has really brought it to the fore. Why do we need food banks? I'm still involved with the food banks we helped set up in Birmingham. And over the 3-week period up to the 10th of April, we've given away food to the equivalent of 19,500 meals. Those food banks are not the answer to equality. The answer is fair wages and a fair benefit system. The Child Poverty Action Group tell us that there are 4.1 million children living in the UK in poverty in the UK in 2017-18, and that's expected to rise to 5.2 million by 2022. Even here in St Thomas's Parish, the Church Urban Fund recognises as being one of the relatively wealthy parishes in the UK, and yet even here, 1 out of every 10 children are living in poverty. And while we hear of the devastating effects of coronavirus, it's been estimated that for many years now, poverty has been killing more than 30,000 people every day worldwide. And today, with our news focused so much on the effect of the virus in the UK and in the developed world, a huge crisis is developing in other parts of the world, which may well soon lead to the starvation of millions of people in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and particularly in areas where there's ongoing war. The real presence of Jesus was only revealed on the road to Emmaus when the bread was broken and shared. In a similar way, the presence of Jesus is revealed today as we take part in the mission of Jesus and as we share with others in solidarity with their suffering and in common action and justice. Doing this opens the way for the good news of the gospel to be shared not only through action but also through word and through the witness of our lives as fellow followers of Jesus. During Lent, we had the opportunity to focus on celebrating God's creation. At Easter, we celebrate God's resurrection. Now perhaps it's time for us to join with those who walked on the Emmaus Road. They turned round, they went back to Jerusalem, and they shared the news of their experience of meeting with the risen Lord. One way we can do just that is bringing the good news in its fullness to the poor, And this means not simply witnessing through what we say, but also by living out the gospel and its call for justice. For the gospel is very clearly, it tells us very clearly that we must take action for justice. We can start by doing something practical. There are many different ways we can do something. One suggestion I would make is that we look at Tear Fund and CMS. They send out weekly prayer requests, both excellent resources to help us not only pray but also increase our awareness of all the church around us is doing in response to injustice. You can easily sign up for those prayer requests online. If you're in a position to do so, consider contributing financially to Christian organisations working with the needy. Donate to a local food bank. They're all stretched at the moment and would appreciate donations. Many supermarkets have trolleys in which you can put the donations while you're shopping. And during these days, while we stay home, stay safe, save lives, let us live out our lives as Christians in a way that not only reflects our faith, but also the hope that our own meeting with the risen Christ has planted in our lives. Amen.